And I'll be the opening speaker this morning. It's an honor and privilege to be here in Toruniu, Poland. I apologize that I can't give this talk in Polish. As the bio says, I'm from Canada, and I don't speak Polish, I speak English. Again, I wish I could do this all in Polish. So wasn't that a wonderful evening last night? Seemed that everyone who was anybody was here bringing greetings, and we certainly had a provocative opening talk, very enjoyable and engaging, thinking about how we can overcome trauma. And then the screen opened up and we had the Symphony of Toruniu with the Beatles, and it was incredible seeing you all rocking or rolling to that great music from the 60s and 70s. So we're in for a fantastic day, looking forward to learning a lot with you, and of course looking forward to this evening as well. So my topic is on rethinking aging, not the nursing home that grandma lives in. And I'll bring up the first slide up. It should be behind me. If I can get the PowerPoint presentation. There it is, thank you. So, can I see a show of hands? Raise your hands if you are fearful of growing old. How many people are scared of growing old? Only a few of you, okay. So, if you're scared of growing old, if I could ask you why, you would probably say it's something like your fear is that you'll be dependent on others, that you'll forget things, that you won't be able to do things that you used to be able to do. Maybe you'll need assistance with feeding. Maybe you won't be able to go to the bathroom on your own. But what if I could tell you that those fears could be changed? That narrative of decline in old age doesn't have to be your reality. So let's try this again. How many of you, if you didn't have those fears, would want to live to be at least 85? Raise your hands if you'd love to be 85. Not everybody. I'm surprised. Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm seeing more people. Thank you. So thank you for the lights. So if you all want to be 85, let's try this. Let's imagine we're all 85. Let me help you. We're now going to be transported in a time machine, and we're all 85. Now, just to be reality, imagine that you're 85. Imagine how you feel, how you look. Now, if you can't do that, look to the person to your left and imagine that they're 85. Now, take a second, look to the person on your right and imagine that they're 85. Here's our reality. The reality is that one of you is living in a nursing home. You require care. That's the reality. The other reality is that the other person, that second person, they are caregiving for that person in the nursing home. Now you're thinking, you said look to your left, look to your right, so maybe I'm the lucky one. If you are, then you're having the time of your life. You're dancing and you're romancing and you wish the music would never stop. So I'm going to show you different ways that we can age successfully, and also some different models of providing care for people in nursing homes. So part of our challenge is ageism. If you think about ageism, it's the new ism, and it's an ism we haven't overcome yet. One comparator would be racism, would be discriminating people against their skin color. Another would be sexism, discriminating against people based on their gender. But we still discriminate against people based on their age. We call it ageism. A few examples. In English, I'm hoping this translates well into your language, we say things like, if I forget what I want to say, I'm having a senior moment. We would say that's ageism. Or the reason why I was late today arriving was because I was driving behind an elderly person. That would be ageism. Another one is she looks good for her age. And we heard the Beatles last night. Wasn't that wonderful? The Beatles have a great song. They didn't sing it, but they talked about it. When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still love me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? So if you drive around Scotland, you'll see this image. This image is a zone to slow down your car when you're in a zone with the elderly. And if you think about it, where I come from in Canada, you drive through a school zone, you'll see the similar picture for young people. But we should have the same kind of respect for places where the elderly are. By the way, what is she doing to him in this picture? They're holding hands. If I asked you what you see in her face, you might say you see wisdom, you see beauty, you see happiness, you see contentness, and you probably also see wrinkles. And outside of this room, there's a whole industry out there that would prefer that her face doesn't have wrinkles. We call that movement the anti-aging movement. If you go to the drugstore, you would see in the drugstore products that you can put on your face to get rid of wrinkles. Maybe you can go see a doctor to get some surgery, or even inject your skin with Botox. But I think part of our challenge with ourselves as we grow old, we're almost discriminated against a population that we're serving and a population that we do fear, but we would like to become one day. So I think we should be celebrating and owning old age. This is Carl Reiner. You may recognize him. He's 95 years of age. He will probably never need to move into a nursing home. But every morning, what he does is he gets up and he reads the obituary section, the section in the newspaper that lists people who have passed away. And then what does he do? If his name's not in the newspaper, he goes and has breakfast. And he says, people don't retire, they inspire. I love that motto. He made a movie with his friends, Dick Van Dyke, Mel Brooks, and Harriet Thompson. Harriet Thompson's a hero. She's a great example of successful aging. She runs marathons every year. She just passed away visiting a friend of hers in assisted living in a nursing home. And she passed away while she was visiting. She tripped on some stairs. But every year, she ran this marathon in San Diego, California, and she raised money for blood cancer, for leukemia research. And she kept on breaking the world's records for people running the marathon over 90 years of age. She's a nonagenarian. And of course, you know this lady, Betty White. So Betty White's story is that Betty White was on a Super Bowl commercial on a Sunday, and then there was a Facebook campaign to get her to host a TV show called Saturday Night Live, which you've probably heard of. But the demographics are for people who are young, for college students. So the producer of the show did not want an old lady hosting a show that caters to college students. But she hosted the show. She got an award for it, an Emmy. The show actually got an award also for being one of the best episodes of Saturday Night Live. And everybody loves Betty White. This couple, again, this is healthy aging. They've been doing things all their life. This is Esther and Martin Kafer. They're from Switzerland, and for their honeymoon, they went up the Matterhorn. In their mid-80s, they climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, the roof of Africa, the highest peak in Africa, to raise money for Alzheimer's research. And they're never going to stop slowing down. I want to share a personal story. This is my daughter and my grandmother, and my mom's in the audience today. My grandma, when she turned 85, she had a stroke during dinner. Luckily for us, we were together. So she immediately went to the hospital, and they treated her in the emergency, and they were able to bring her back to life with modern medicine by getting rid of the blockage in her brain. I'll come back to her in a moment. But she did suffer from that stroke a cognitive impairment. I want to tell you first about our daughter. Dahlia has also a cognitive impairment. She has a chromosome condition, and because of that chromosome condition, she's developing slower than her peers mentally and physically. Dahlia lives at home with us. She goes to school, a public school, and she has a full-time aide, about 7 hours a day. And she's well known in the community. Grandma Mary, when she had her stroke, she disappeared. Let me be specific. We disappeared her. She ended up moving to assisted living and then to a nursing home. and she spent most of her time watching television in her room. Her day was regimented, just like the nursing home residents where I work. She followed the schedule of the staff. She complied, she was happy, but it was a regimen. And I think she was lonely despite the best efforts of my mom and sister and other family members visiting her. I believe she was lonely and would have preferred to live at home if she could have. It's a big contrast to Dahlia, our daughter, who has a full-time aide. Grandma had less than 3 hours of care per day, less than half of what Dahlia got. And the other point, in Canada, the doctors who are specialists in the care of the elderly are called geriatricians. Pediatricians take care of Dahlia, and her care is coordinated. But for every one geriatrician in Canada, there's more than 10 pediatricians. So we haven't yet made the shift in resources, and the resources should be shifted because, as we heard last night, there are more seniors today than young people. In Canada, there's more people over 65 than under 15. Now, think about it. You're 85 now. We're still in that time machine, and I hope your bones don't hurt too much. If you think about people with dementia, when they come to the dining room and they're looking at food, even food they're familiar with, it might look like this scene. This is from Shanghai. But once you open up that container, the food will be delicious. So think about the food that's on your plate that you're serving. Does it look like the food that people are used to? Here's an example. We call this stew in English. I think you call it goulash. And if you're taking food and you're pureeing it for somebody who has a swallowing disorder for dysphagia, why not try to make it look appetizing? I believe this should be the standard in our industry. The one on the right, that food should look appetizing, even for people with swallowing challenges. How about this one? We can even do a better job than that. We can make the food look like it should. And I believe this should be our industry standard. This shouldn't be the exception, it should be the rule. Erica lives at Tabor Village. She keeps on going on her motorcycle, and nothing's going to stop her. She's going to continue until she can no longer drive. And in fact, she'll probably continue even after her driver's license is taken away. It doesn't make sense to me that you turn a certain age and all of a sudden you can't drive. So she'll continue driving around Vancouver. So one of the things that we are challenged in our industry with is having good leadership. And this is a group of masters of leadership in nursing from University of British Columbia, a course I teach. And the lady in front of the screen, her name's Jill. And Jill is a shop steward, head of the union, and she's a care aide. She provides direct care to people, and she's teaching these nursing students how to be leaders. One of the things I believe we don't do a good job at in our industry is giving leadership skills to people who are providing direct care and who are leading those people who provide direct care. We ask the residents at Tabor Village, where I work, every summer, we say, how would your summer be fantastic? We know this could be their last summer. So one of the residents said, I really want to have the opportunity to feed a calf, to milk a cow. So we were able to bring cows to our nursing homes for the residents. Sounds pretty normal to me. I love this picture. This is Jean. Jean lives in a nursing home in Dijon, France. And this is the workshop next to his bedroom. He has the key to this workshop. He goes in there on his own. Think of the risk there. The risk is okay. He's accepted the risk. And that's called a scroll saw. And there's a guard protecting his fingers from being cut off. After he goes into the workshop, he goes downstairs and enjoys a delicious red wine, some cheese, meats, and baguettes. A lot of this stuff isn't allowed in Canada in nursing homes, but this is the way it should be. So one of the things we do in nursing homes is we like to give medication. Even though it's the most dangerous part in the healthcare system, more mistakes are made in medication administration than any other part of the healthcare system. And the average number of medications in Canada is 9 per resident. And here's what happens. We also give medications, we call them chemical restraints, psychotropic medications, to people who don't necessarily have a diagnosis of a psychotic illness. So we have to reduce also the use of prescription drugs that are for people who have dementia. We've automated our dispensing system, and now we scan all the medications into those pouches, and the pharmacy pays us for this. We don't pay for it, and it creates a system where you can't make mistakes any longer. The right medication goes to the right person at the right time. And it creates an electronic medication administration record that ties into the electronic health record. Again, this should be the industry standard. Now, Ruby, who's an LPN, she's a nurse, she's no longer going into the Director of Care's office. I think a number of you are nurses. You're probably very nice people, but I don't want to be in your office when I've made a medication error. So Ruby's no longer going into the Director of Care's office when she made a mistake. She never makes mistakes anymore. This movie is called Alive Inside. On the right is Dan Cohen. He's a social worker. He tried to get music available for all the residents in nursing homes in the United States, and he wasn't able to do that. It was easier to get medication to give to the residents so they could calm down than get them to put headphones on and to purchase a music player. By the way, she is listening to the Beatles in this movie. It's called Alive Inside, Music and Memory. We use music to talk about what it's like to live in a nursing home. We heard about trauma last night. I believe the staff that we are supporting need our support because we're dealing with trauma all the time. The trauma is the ongoing effect of death in the workplace, death from seniors. Staff make relationships with them, and we need to support them. Food's very important. As you can imagine, as you know, food is important to all of us. And I would just say that toast is one of the most basic things that we can improve on. At Tabor, our toast isn't so great. And we have a complaint about toast, and it made our public radio station, and I was interviewed about how poor our quality is in a number of areas, including toast. And when I went to the resident who complained, he told me that you can't get a good piece of toast at our nursing home. So he told me what kind of toast he likes. He likes his toast crispy and warm and dry. And so I went and got him that toast, and he was happy. He stopped complaining. If I asked you about borscht, about soup, you each have your own recipe. This is the recipe we use at Tabor Village. It is a Ukrainian borscht with cabbage. I don't think you put cabbage in your borscht here. And everybody has their own borscht recipe. So if you think about it, if I asked you about your recipes for borscht, you all have a different recipe. So how do you keep all the seniors that you're caring for happy? It's very challenging, and that's why we have lots of issues. Quality improvement is very important, and auditing. So those two missing pieces of this plum-plutz, this dessert, that's called quality control, and I'm guilty. I went to work one day, and I smelt it in the kitchen, and I ran in there and grabbed the first two pieces. But we call that quality control. If you pass your hand washing audit at Tabor, we give you a cookie. We control infections. That's another big risk. This is lunchtime at Tabor. Some goats were visiting, and one of the residents with advanced dementia is feeding residents instead of her being fed. Staff appreciation. One of the seniors is thanking staff. If you ask your employees that you work with, ask them about if they feel appreciated. It's often how they feel appreciated from the residents and from their coworkers. One of the things about growing old is people think that you lose bodily functions. It's not just the elderly that have issues with incontinence. Some of us have it as well, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. We should be showing off our incontinent products. We can also use technology to, instead of toileting somebody when it's good for staff, why not toilet them when they need to go? The technology's there now to monitor diapers and know when we should be changing somebody using electronics. And of course, there are places that don't use this at all, don't use incontinent products. In Japan, in Tokyo, there's a nursing home where they toilet people on a regular basis, and they do not wear diapers. They don't use incontinent products there. So the reality that we have, we can change it if we want to. We all know what Sigmund Freud said about why grandparents and grandchildren get along so well. They have a common adversary. This lady lives in the Dijon, France nursing home, and she plays cards, and she usually beats the staff members. Apple did a commercial years ago about thinking differently, and I really think, if you look it up, Think Differently, the campaign, if I had more time, I'd read it out, but we have to think differently about our industry. The current thinking that we have around our industry needs to change. I'm going to show you a few examples. If I asked you why women live longer than men, if I look out there, I see a lot of women. The people that you care for are mostly women. I've asked this question around the world, and I hear lots of good reasons from scientists, from gerontologists, but the one reason I wanted to share why women live longer than men was from a resident of our nursing home. Her name's Vi, and Vi stood up from her wheelchair, one arm resting on the wheelchair armrest, the other was wagging her finger at me, and she said, "Mr. Levitt, I'll tell you why women live longer than men. We deserve to." Robots could automate our workplaces and make seniors more independent, and we need that in homes. We need technology in people's homes. But here's what I think will make seniors very happy, these new inventions that are coming. So a quick lesson. This is from my colleague Marcus Lezer from Switzerland. He showed this a few weeks ago at a conference in Prague. If you look at the nursing home evolution from the far left, from basically the warehouses to hospital style, to the living area concept, now to the household that feels like a house. And now we're even going into new models of design where the whole community is one. We don't segregate seniors off by themselves. So here are some quick examples, I believe, of how we're reinventing the nursing home. This is called Evermore. It comes from the UK. Joe, you may have heard of this. And basically, it's a navigation system where seniors are navigated through the healthcare system, and they're not dropped. Our system is often fragmented. So this is one way that we can better care for seniors by making sure that they get the services they need when they need them. This is called the Pocket Neighborhood. I visited one a few months ago in Portland, Oregon, and seniors live together with other people in a small enclave called a Pocket Neighborhood. This is co-housing in Brooklyn, New York. Seniors and others live together. They support each other. There's a codependence. In German, I think they call it Gemeinschaft. The village movement is catching on. In Boston, it started at Beacon Hill area, and this is essentially the same model, the sharing economy, the Uber of the nursing home, where people help out each other. One person walks someone's dog, the other does the shopping, maybe somebody helps them with some of their daily activities. Then, of course, we have the dementia-friendly movement and age-friendly in Singapore. The whole city is now trained and redesigned around old people. Here's some seniors one early morning on a walkway, and that gentleman in the front, Mr. Chan, he's in his 90s. He'll probably never need a nursing home because the city is age-friendly. They can walk around just like they do in Krefeld, Germany. They can walk around despite living in a nursing home. So I want to take you to Boston, Massachusetts. This is called the Leonard Florence Center. It's called a greenhouse. 12 people live per neighborhood in this home, and about 100 seniors live there. This lady in the wheelchair, her grandson or great-grandson just slept overnight on the floor. Think about the floors in your nursing home. For infection control, would you want a young boy lying on the carpet? But that doesn't look like a nursing home at all. And that's really what we should be designing, I believe. The seniors there, they eat what they want when they want. You've all heard of the Dementia Village in the Netherlands. And it's designed around these pods of Cs, the C shape. Inside each of those 6 people live. They believe anything more than 6 people is an institution. And this lady has advanced dementia. She's going grocery shopping for the people who live in her home, in her house. And that's all the food they need. There's no central kitchen. There's no central laundry. You wouldn't even recognize this to be a nursing home. And this lady is in the Rembrandt Art Studio. She comes and goes as she wants. This is the restaurant they have on site, and they have great food there. Again, people come from the outside in, not just to visit grandma, but because it's a cool place to hang out. Our industry is faced with people getting older, sicker, frailer, coming in later in life. And we're becoming palliative care institutions, palliative care homes. This is St. Christopher's, the first modern-day hospice. And we're really looking at the hospice movement and palliative care as guidelines for how we can be treating seniors. At Tabor, we found a good use for our hospital gowns. I don't think a senior should ever be dressed up in a hospital gown unless they're doing arts and crafts. There's one cure for a senior who's lonely, helpless, and bored. By the way, aren't her fingers and her hands beautiful? There's one cure, though, for this. It's not a doll, even though this doll called Pero from Japan has artificial intelligence, keeps her company. That'll help, but it'll never replace this, another set of hands. I really think the human touch is something that seniors in care miss the most, and it's heartbreaking that we can't touch and connect with them more. I think it's not just touch, but it's also being touched by your soul, by spirituality. And I think the spiritual care is so important for seniors. If I had more time, I would take you and read you the runner's blessing that we have every the third Sunday of April in Vancouver. We have a big sun run. And a bunch of us from Tabor Village were on a team together, and we do this run, and we go to church beforehand. It's probably the most inspiring service we go to all year long. We're all wearing our running gear before it's stinky and smelly. And then we run the sun run, and they do a beautiful runner's blessing beforehand, and it's quite inspiring. When you're thinking of change, there's a quote by Margaret Mead, who I believe is Canadian. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you very much.